Welcome to Plutus IAS. This is MURALI, and in this lecture, we'll discuss about tribal development in post India or post independence. See, actually, this is a very important topic because it can be covered in modern history. We can cover it in post-independence, and we can also take this part of Indian society as well, right? So it is not only a specifically history topic, but we can also cover it as part of social justice. We can cover it as part of Indian society, right? So what is this tribal development? See, basically, you know that tribals are part of a distinct society as different from mainstream society, because if you see, tribals have their own way of life, right? So their lifestyle is isolated. They practice or they had their own distinct culture, right? And they have their own economic and political systems, right? So they have their own practices, and most of these are forest dependent, right? So this is about the life of tribals. So what is that? They had their own way of life. Their lifestyle is isolated, had their own distinct culture which is different from mainstream culture, had their own economic and political systems, separate economic and political systems which are different from mainstream systems. They had their own belief system, practices, right? And most of these tribal communities are forest dependent communities, right? So this is the tribal way of life. So looking at their issues pre-independent era, pre-independence, that means under British India. So there were a lot of issues regarding tribals occurred. So especially many outsiders penetrated into tribal areas. The British government imposed taxes on tribals. The British government imposed new revenue policies on tribals. Many zamindars and money lenders were introduced into tribal areas, right? So all these led to what? All these led to exploitation of tribals under British India, right? So ultimately, this resulted in various numerous tribal revolts, right? So across the country, so we have examples like Ahom revolt, Kasir revolt, Munda revolt, Santal rebellion, Bill uprising, right? Koya revolt, Rampar rebellion. So there were numerous tribal revolts erupted in British India due to the exploitation of these tribals by the British officials, zamindars, money lenders, and various other uh, aspects of the British administration. So now, so this is the condition of tribals before independence. Now coming to the post-independence period, coming to the post-independence period. Now that this was the major question before the Nehruvian government. So what was the major question? How to develop tribals. So the question was how to develop the tribals, or how to make tribals part of nation building. So these are the two questions that appeared before the Nehruvian government. So what are they? Obviously now, so far tribals have been exploited by the British government. Now we got independence. Now we have to focus on every section of society, including tribals. So with respect to tribals, so the question is how to develop them and how to make them part of the nation building process. So in this context, there were different policies. There were different policies proposed before Nehru, right? So what are those? One is policy of isolation. The other is policy of assimilation, and the other one is policy of integration, right? So policy of isolation, policy of assimilation, and policy of integration. So these are the three policies proposed by various sociologists, anthropologists before the government of Nehru. So what is this? Let us see them individually. Policy of isolation. See, what is this policy? Basically, some sociologists and some anthropologists have suggested that tribals must be left isolated. They must be left isolated. That means the tribal areas should be left untouched. Okay. So what does that mean? So that means the government or the mainstream society, that is, let us say this is mainstream society and this is tribal society. So the mainstream society should never touch the tribal society to protect their distinct way of life. Okay. So that means tribal should be left isolated so that they can have their own way of life, which will be left untouched. Okay. So that is policy of isolation. And the second one is policy of assimilation. What is this policy of assimilation? It is like opposite to that actually, opposite to isolation. Assimilation means assimilate the tribals into mainstream society. So that means now we have to assimilate the tribals into mainstream society. So to improve them or to integrate them with the mainstream society. But actually, what's the problem here? Forcible assimilation of tribals into mainstream society will affect their own distinct culture and identity, right? So the tribals cannot have their own way of life. So they will be superimposed. They will be their orientation or developmental orientation will be dictated by the mainstream society, right? So this will also hamper. So policy of isolation completely leaves tribals, so that obviously they cannot have the fruits of development of mainstream society. So that was that also affects tribals. Policy of assimilation, that is forcible assimilation of tribals into mainstream society, this also affects tribals. So that's why both these policies were rejected. So both these policies were rejected by Nehru, and Nehru adopted policy of integration. Nehru adopted policy of integration. What is this policy of integration? Under this policy, the tribals must be gradually integrated into mainstream society, at the same time protecting their own distinct way of life and identity. Got it? So what does this says? The tribals must be gradually integrated into mainstream society, at the same time protecting their distinct culture and their identity. So this is the policy of integration, which is in fact adopted by the Nehruvian government. So as part of this integration policy, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru laid down 5 principles for tribal development. Got it? So he laid down 5 principles. What are those 5 principles? Together we call them as, this policy is called as tribal Panchashil policy. In fact, we can say it is a mother policy of the tribal development in India. So, what is this? The tribal Panchashil policy. So, let us see tribal Panchashil policy and the 5 principles. So, what are those 5 principles? Tribals must be developed along the lines of their own genius. Second is tribal rights over land and forest must be respected. Third is we should develop a team of their own people to carry work in development and administration. Fourth is tribal areas should not be over administered. Fifth is we should not judge the results, or we can say we should not judge the results on the basis of statistics or amount of money spent, but on the basis of human character inward. Right? So, these are the 5 principles. So, what are they? Tribals must be developed along the lines of their own genius. So, what does that mean? That means while developing tribal areas, so we should follow the tribal. We should not impose external schemes or excessive external programs on the tribal areas. Instead, we should develop them in their own way. So, tribals must progress, but that progress should be in the tribal way. Okay. So, that's why it's called the tribals must be developed along the lines of their own genius, not with especially without any external over imposition. Next, tribal rights over land and forest must, because obviously these are mostly forest dependent communities and they have solely dependent on forest and land. So, the rights over such land and forest must be respected. Third, we should develop a team of their own people to carry administration and development. So, generally, for carrying the administrative works or development works in tribal areas, we should more rely on tribal people than outsiders. Next, tribal areas should not be over administered. That means we should not dump excessive schemes or programs in tribal areas. So, administration should be kept as limited as possible. Last, the results should not be judged on the basis of amount of money spent or the statistics, but should be judged on the basis of the human character that is involved, or we can say the human character that is evolved. So that that should be the parameter for showing the result of development of tribal areas, right? So these are the various policies adopted by, especially the policy of integration adopted by Nehru, and as part of that policy of integration, Nehru have devised his own principles regarding tribal development that came to be called as tribal Panchashil policy, which is one of the prominent policies regarding tribal development in India. So in this context, various constitutional measures and various legal measures have been undertaken. Constitutional measures like Schedule 5, Schedule 6, right? And as well as Article 46, Article 332, which gives reservation for them in the houses, Article 338A, which creates a National Commission for ST, Article 350, which preserves their distinct language, culture, and script, right? So these are various constitutional provisions which are placed in the Constitution to protect and preserve the culture of tribals, right? And apart from that, there are legal measures also implemented by the government, such as uh, Panchayat Extension to Schedule Areas Act 1996, Prevention of Atrocities Against SCs and STs Act 1989, and as Forest Rights Act 2006, Legal Services Authorities Act 1987. So these are all various legal provisions or laws which are enacted for the development and protection of tribal people. And apart from these constitutional measures and legal measures, we also have a lot of multiplicity of schemes like Ekalavya model schools, Vanabandhu Kalyan Yojana, right? Pre-metric and post-metric scholarships for the tribals, and we have like Stand Up India scheme. So various schemes, programs, and as well as constitutional measures and legal measures have been enacted for the purpose of development of tribals in India, who constitute nearly 8.6% of the total population of India according to 2011 census, right? So this is how the development towards tribals have started in the beginning of independent India. So that is from 1950s under the leadership of Nehru, right? So this is about the tribal development, and this topic is very important for both modern history, that is post-independent India, and as well as it is also important topic for Indian society, and it's also an important topic for social justice. So it covers across two papers, that is GS1 and GS2. So that's why this topic is very, very important, right? Thank you.